You were nothing before her, and you'll be nothing after. Those words weren't just thrown at me, they were carved into every hallway whisper, every smirk from teachers, every sarcastic look from the students who never missed a chance to remind me I was just the nerd she toyed with, Mira. The girl who used to sit beside me in class, barely awake, always late, eyeliner smudged like war paint, the girl whose very name made people scoff, or worse, lean in for gossip. The girl who walked into my life like a fire and left like a storm. And yet now, the same people are standing in line outside a bookstore, waiting to buy my story. But let's go back to the beginning. It was senior year, I was ranked second in the class, I always wore buttoned-up collars, answered every question with precision, and kept my distance from chaos. Mira was chaos. She transferred into our class mid-semester, wearing a red leather jacket over her uniform and headphones blaring music during a quiz. Her name was already etched into desks, bathroom stalls, and rumors from her previous school. Expelled twice, dated a dropout, smoked behind the lab building, pushed a teacher once, or so they said. She sat next to me, not by choice, no one wanted to share a desk with her. "Jason, right?" she said, the first time we made eye contact. I nodded cautiously. "You look like you cry when your pen runs out of ink." And that was the beginning of it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because that night, as I walked home in the rain, I saw her again, crouched under a closed storefront awning, shivering, holding her bag over her head like it mattered more than her. "You don't have an umbrella?" I asked. She looked up. Rain dripped down her cheeks like tears she'd never admit to. "Lost it," she mumbled. "Come on," I said, tilting mine toward her. "I'll walk you home." She hesitated, then stepped forward, not close, but close enough. Her home was nothing like I expected, one cracked window, paint peeling on the walls, and a drunk voice shouting behind the door as she whispered, "Thanks, you should go." I didn't. And that's when everything began to unravel. She started waiting for me after school, started borrowing my notes, started sitting next to me at lunch like we were some kind of team. People talked, they always do. "Jason's next," one guy whispered. "She chews through boys like gum." "She's just using him to pass," another said. I wanted to believe I didn't care, that I was smarter than all of them, that I knew the real her. But one afternoon, when she didn't show up for class, I found her behind the gym, knees scraped, lips split, eyes wild with fear. "Andrew," she muttered. I told him it was over. Andrew, her ex, the dropout thug who still roamed around like the school owed him. He saw me, laughed. "You're replacing me now, glasses boy?" He shoved me hard. I hit the ground. Mira didn't even flinch. She stepped between us and said, "Touch him again and I'll kill you." That was the first time I realized Mira wasn't the villain in their stories. She was the one they never bothered to understand, and I, Jason, the invisible boy, was the only one who ever asked why. They said I'd be nothing without her. What they didn't know is, I was already nothing until she arrived. In high school, I was invisible by design. Jason, the kid who answered questions too fast, the one who stayed behind after class to help teachers, the one who never showed up at parties because I was too busy solving equations and building software modules for competitions no one else cared about. My hair was always too neat, my shirts were always tucked in, my words were measured like currency, never too much, never too loud. My plan was simple: stay focused, stay clean, get out. Then Mira happened. She walked into our classroom on a Wednesday afternoon, 10 minutes late, leather jacket over her uniform like she didn't care how many rules she was breaking. Her silver blonde hair shimmered under the cheap classroom lights, and her eyes scanned the room like she was bored of all of us before she even said a word. "Take the seat beside Jason," the teacher instructed, sounding more exhausted than authoritative. She looked at me, tilted her head, and smirked. "So this is what a top-ranked student looks like, huh?" Her voice wasn't loud, but the entire row heard. A few students laughed. I said nothing. She dropped her bag with a thud and sat down, legs crossed, pulling out a pen like it was a weapon. That was the start. The next few days, she did what Mira always did, showed up when she felt like it, doodled on her test papers, disappeared during labs, and ignored the curriculum like it was beneath her. She rarely spoke to anyone except to provoke or dismiss. Even the teachers walked on eggshells when addressing her. And yet, for some reason, She always talked to me. Jason, lend me your notes. Jason, what's this formula? Jason, you're seriously doing homework during lunch? I never asked her to stop. I never said no. At first, it was just proximity. She sat next to me, and I couldn't pretend she wasn't there. Then came the storm. One evening, heavy rain hit just as shouts all ended. Most students had already left, their umbrellas crowding the gates. I stayed behind to organize some materials for the upcoming regional science competition. When I finally left, the sky was dark, and the roads flooded. That's when I saw her, Mira, sitting on the edge of the front steps, no umbrella, her blazer soaked through, her backpack clutched tightly to her chest. "You're still here?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Lost my keys." I glanced at the downpour, then back at her. "You can wait it out at my place." She raised her eyes slowly, uncertain. "You live nearby?" 2 blocks. "Alone?" I nodded. A long pause. Then she stood, pulled her bag over her shoulder, and followed me. Inside my small apartment, she wandered like a ghost. I offered her a towel. She took it without a word. She disappeared into the bathroom, and I sat on the couch like a stranger in my own home. When she emerged, towel wrapped around her head, wearing my spare t-shirt, something shifted in the room. She looked younger, softer, more real. "Thanks," she muttered, not quite meeting my eyes. That night, she slept on the couch. I stayed in my room, door closed, heart racing every time I heard her shift. When morning came, she was gone. But she came to school that day, and every day after that, and slowly, everything changed. We studied together, ate lunch together, walked home together. I learned Mira hated math but loved literature, that she never drank coffee but hoarded candy, that she always carried 3 lighters but didn't smoke anymore, that she had a playlist titled Run Fast, filled with metal and symphonic rock. I learned her secrets slowly. Her parents were both overseas, sending money but not love. She lived with her aunt, a woman who treated her more like a tenant than a niece. The silver hair, a rebellion, the skipped classes, a protest, the rumors about her sleeping around, lies crafted by jealous girls and petty boys who couldn't handle rejection. And I told her about me too, about my mom, who left when I was 9, about my dad, who worked 2 jobs to keep the rent paid and still found time to quiz me before exams, about how I hated attention, about how I'd built a software plugin at 13 that accidentally crashed our school's internal grading system. She laughed when I said that, a real laugh. It lit up her whole face. "You're such a nerd, Jason," I shrugged. "Better than being boring." She leaned closer. "You're not boring." Mira had a way of saying things that made silence louder than any noise. Still, not everyone saw her the way I did. Anna, one of the smartest girls in class, and frankly, the most graceful, used to sit beside me before Mira's arrival. She was polite, calm, and popular among teachers. For a while, people thought we'd end up together. I didn't feel that way about her, but Anna didn't exactly take Mira's presence lightly. "She's distracting you," Anna said one day after class. "She's not," I replied. "She's trouble. She's trying." "No, Jason, you're the one trying. She's just orbiting." That stuck with me. But it also made me realize something else. I was trying, not to impress Mira, but to understand her, because the more I listened, the more I saw past the armor. The day Mira came to school with a black eye and refused to talk about it, I didn't push, I just slid a small tube of healing cream across the desk. She blinked. "You always have everything, don't you?" "First aid kit is under the desk." "Of course it is." The next week, she joined me at the library for the first time. She couldn't concentrate. She tapped her pen, rolled her eyes, muttered sarcastic comments, but she didn't leave. "You're really going to sit here for 3 hours?" she groaned. 3.5. "You're insane. Want to be insane with me?" She stared at me, then opened her book. Our desks got moved again a month later. We weren't seated together anymore. She threatened to skip class until the teacher gave in. It was absurd. It was Mira. The relationship wasn't romantic at first. It wasn't even labeled. We were just together, always. Andrew, her ex, didn't like that. He cornered her near the cafeteria once, raised his voice, slammed his hand against the wall. I saw red. I stepped in, didn't think, didn't hesitate. He punched me, hard, But before he could land a second, Mira swung her backpack straight into his face. Security pulled us apart. We got detention. Andrew got suspended. In the nurse's office, as she dabbed my lip with a tissue, Mira said softly, "Idiot, why would you jump in?" "I don't know," I replied. "Maybe I just hate seeing you scared." She paused. "You're the only one who ever sees that." For months after, we didn't talk about what we were. We didn't need to. Everyone else already decided. They're dating. She's using him. She'll dump him before finals. But we didn't care. At least, I thought we didn't. Until one night, she didn't answer my texts, didn't show up to school, vanished. When she returned 2 days later, she didn't speak, just handed me a letter, folded once, ink smudged. Inside, "I don't deserve you, Jason, but you gave me the closest thing to peace I've ever known. Please don't forget me." She didn't say goodbye. She walked past me like I was a stranger, and for a while, that's exactly what we became again. The day Mira handed me that letter and walked away, I couldn't process it. I read the words over and over again until they no longer looked like English, until my brain ached and my chest felt hollow. She didn't text again. She didn't show up to school. Her desk sat empty for a week. 2 weeks. Anna returned to sitting beside me. "She's gone," she said gently one morning, sliding her books in place. "You can breathe again." But I couldn't, because everything around me felt tighter, like someone had twisted the air and rewired the noise in the hallways. Even the scribbles she'd carved into her side of the desk, her initials, tiny stars, random math jokes, taunted me like ghosts that wouldn't leave. I tried to focus, on exams, on my projects, on the national coding competition that was only 2 months away. But Mira haunted everything. Then, out of nowhere, she returned. 3 weeks later. No explanation. Just walked into class during third period like she hadn't been gone a day. Her hair was tied neatly, no eyeliner, school uniform buttoned up to her throat. She sat at her old seat, next to me. I froze. Anna whispered, "What the hell?" But I couldn't move. Mira didn't say anything at first, didn't even look at me. Until class ended and she stood, slipping a folded piece of paper onto my desk before walking out. I had to disappear. I didn't have a choice. Please don't ask. I wanted to scream, to demand an answer, but when I chased her down the hallway and called her name, she didn't stop. She kept walking like I was just another classmate calling out about homework. It wasn't until the following week that the whispers started. I saw Mira outside the university bar. She was with someone. Andrew? No. Worse. A college guy. Some finance major. Looked 25. I didn't believe it. I refused to. Until Anna slid her phone across the table toward me. A photo. Blurry. But Mira's silhouette was unmistakable, leaning into a tall guy, laughing at something he said, his arm draped across her shoulders. "Don't say I didn't warn you," Anna murmured. I sat there, breath caught in my throat. I didn't say a word, but something inside me started to splinter. That afternoon, I didn't wait for Mira. I walked home alone. She knocked on my door an hour later. "I know you're home," she said. I didn't answer. "Jason, come on." Still nothing. Then I heard her voice drop, barely a whisper. "You think I didn't want to tell you the truth? You think I didn't want to stay?" I opened the door. Her eyes locked with mine. "I had to leave," she said. "My aunt, she kicked me out. I had nowhere to stay. I found someone, an old friend from middle school. He let me crash at his place, that's all." "The photo?" "Was a moment," she cut me off. "We ran into some of his friends. One of them took that photo. Nothing happened." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed." She looked away. Her voice cracked. "You pulled me out of the worst version of myself, Jason, and the second I felt like I might lose you, I panicked. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but Anna's words echoed again. She's orbiting, you're the one trying, and now, this. Disappearance. The photo. The silence. "You should have told me," I said quietly. "I know." I let her in, but things didn't go back to normal. We studied together again, sat side by side. She helped me prep for the coding competition, even staying up with me on nights I couldn't sleep from the stress, but something was different. There was a tension neither of us addressed, and then came the real blow. A week before the regional competition, Mira skipped school again. She didn't answer texts, calls, nothing. That night, Andrew showed up. At my apartment. "You still think you matter to her?" he said, shoving a flash drive into my chest. "Check this out." He walked off before I could say anything. I stared at the drive for hours before finally plugging it in. It was a video. Taken in a karaoke lounge. Mira sitting on a couch, surrounded by guys. One of them feeding her something, maybe candy, maybe a drink. She was laughing. Her legs were tucked under her, bare. One of the guys leaned close, whispered something in her ear. She didn't move away. My heart sank. It didn't feel like her, but it was her. That night, I didn't sleep. When Mira returned 2 days later, I didn't speak to her. She approached me after school, expression guarded. "Jason, I saw the video." Her face fell. "I didn't know they were filming. I went there because I was desperate for cash. My aunt cut off everything. I had no place to stay again." "You could have come here," I said, voice barely steady. "You always had this place." "I thought you didn't want me anymore." "How could you think that?" "Because you started looking at me like I was a burden, like I was poison." I wanted to deny it, but part of me knew she wasn't wrong. That's what made it worse. I had started to believe the rumors, started to question her, doubt her, because it was easier than trusting something that felt too fragile to be real. "I didn't do anything with them," she whispered. "I swear." I looked at her, and didn't respond. She stepped back. "So that's it?" "I don't know," I said honestly. And for once, Mira didn't fight. She just nodded. "Then I won't bother you anymore." She turned and walked away. And I didn't stop her. I won the regional coding competition. I received an invitation to join an elite university program. I gave interviews, appeared on local news, even got featured in a national tech magazine. But none of it felt real. Because the one person who pushed me to get there was no longer beside me. Anna congratulated me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Andrew disappeared again, maybe expelled, maybe worse, I didn't care. I only cared that when I stood on that stage, holding the trophy, I looked into the crowd, and Mira wasn't there. After Mira left, really left, everything felt louder. The tick of my desk clock, the shuffle of papers in class, even the applause when I won the regional competition sounded hollow, like a celebration I hadn't earned. I told myself I didn't need her, that it was better this way, that success meant sacrifice, but I was lying, not to anyone else, just to myself. Every night I returned to my apartment expecting silence, and every time it greeted me exactly as expected. The couch she used to sprawl across, legs crossed while pretending to hate math problems. The desk drawer where she once left wrappers from candy she insisted I needed to try. The extra toothbrush that still sat by the sink even though I told myself I'd throw it out. I didn't, because maybe some part of me wanted her to come back, but she didn't. And that's what hurt the most. I couldn't stop thinking about the look on her face the last time we spoke. That barely there smirk hiding the panic in her eyes. The way her fingers twitched when she said, "Then I won't bother you anymore." It didn't look like someone who wanted to leave. It looked like someone who expected to be left, and I'd proven her right. For weeks, I buried myself in work. I aced every exam. I got shortlisted for a pre-college internship at a major tech firm. I received an invitation to speak at a student innovation summit. People congratulated me, like I had it all together. "You're going to go far, Jason. She was holding you back, man. You see that now, right?" But I didn't feel free. I felt amputated. Worse, I felt like a fraud. Because none of this, none of my accolades, none of my polished speeches, would have happened if Mira hadn't pushed me to believe I was more than invisible. I could still hear her voice in my head. "You solve problems like you're solving people. You're so used to fixing things, Jason, but not everything's broken duo. That's because it scares you." I missed her in quiet moments, before bed, when I glanced at the bookshelf and saw the novel she lent me with half the pages dog-eared. I missed her during the rush too, right after winning, when I turned to share the victory and found no one waiting. It was worse in the in-between. The uncertain moments when I wasn't sure if I should text her or let her go. One night, I almost dialed her number. I stared at her name on my phone for 10 minutes, then I stopped. Because what would I even say? Sorry I didn't believe you. Sorry I judged you the second the world told me to. Sorry I didn't fight harder for you. I knew she wouldn't believe any of it. Because even if I meant every word, I had waited too long. And now I didn't even know where she was. Rumors floated around, that she'd transferred again, that she was working somewhere in another city, that she dropped out entirely. No one had answers, only silence. And I hated how I started to resent that silence. I began checking the door when I got home, hoping she might have come back. She never did. Then came the letter. Folded into my locker, no name, no handwriting I recognized, just a printed page. Sometimes people leave because staying feels worse. It doesn't mean they didn't care, it just means they were tired of begging to matter. No signature, no hint, but I knew. It was her. The tone, the phrasing, the way it cut. I read it over and over again that night, memorizing every word until it blurred into static in my brain. She had cared, I knew that now, but she didn't believe I had. And maybe she was right. Because if I had truly cared, if I had really seen her for who she was beneath the noise and judgment, I never would have needed proof to stand by her. I started questioning everything. Why did I freeze when she came back? Why did I let other people tell me how to see her? Why did I, of all people, someone who'd spent his entire life being misunderstood, do the exact same thing to someone else? Maybe because I'd been afraid. Afraid of being associated with her. Afraid of what it would cost me. Afraid of being wrong. But in trying to protect myself, I'd lost her anyway. The week before the Innovation Summit, I was invited to a private dinner with some of the firm's executives. Big opportunity, huge exposure. All I had to do was make a short speech about the project that had won me the competition. I sat there in that hotel dining room, surrounded by men in suits, their watches more expensive than my laptop, and all I could think about was Mira. About how she would have mocked the wine list, about how she would have leaned over and whispered, "God, this place smells like glass and arrogance." And I would have smiled, because she always said what no one else dared to. The speech came. I walked up to the podium, my slides behind me, my future in front of me, but all I could say was, I didn't do this alone. I told them about her. I didn't use her name, I didn't have to. I just said, there was someone who reminded me that people aren't projects. That intelligence isn't about grades, that sometimes the best ideas come from the people no one else listens to. When the applause came, I didn't hear it, because in that moment, I realized what I had to do. I had to find her. I didn't know where to start looking for Mira. I only had fragments, rumors, blurry memories, a letter with no return address. But I knew I couldn't move forward without trying. I checked every alumni transfer log at the admin office, nothing under her name. I asked teachers, even the ones who barely acknowledged her existence when she was around. Most shrugged, some didn't even remember her. She was always so distant, one said, as if that justified forgetting her. I didn't give up. Eventually, Anna approached me during lunch, her voice calm, too calm. "You're looking for her again, aren't you?" I nodded, no use hiding it. "I know where she is." I looked up sharply. "What?" "She's working at a book cafe downtown, near Eastlake, lives above it, I think. She didn't want anyone to know." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't care what happens to you." I frowned. "Anna, you've been walking around like a ghost, Jason. You're here, but you're not really here. You made your choice months ago, but it's clear you never stopped looking back." She hesitated, then added, "So go. If you still think she matters this much, go." That same evening, I was there. The cafe was tucked away on a quiet street corner, dim lights, soft jazz humming through old speakers. Inside, behind the counter, wiping a mug, was Mira. She looked older. Not in the way her face had changed, but in the way her movements had slowed, like someone who had built walls around herself and now lived quietly inside them. I stood in the doorway, not moving, watching. She hadn't seen me yet. Then a customer brushed past, and the bell above the door jingled. Mira looked up. She froze. Her eyes met mine, For a moment, everything around us blurred. Then she turned away and walked into the back. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Finally, she returned, arms crossed, expression unreadable. What are you doing here? I came to talk. There's nothing left to talk about. I disagree. She sighed. Jason, you're successful now. You did what you were meant to. You don't need me anymore. That's not true. Yes, it is. You don't owe me anything. Not apologies, not explanations, just go. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out the old dog-eared novel she once gave me, the one with her name scribbled on the inside cover. You gave me this the day before you disappeared the first time, I said. You told me I wouldn't understand it until later. I figured you'd never actually read it. I read it 3 times. And? I finally understand it. Mira stared at me, her shoulders tensed, her expression faltered. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. I know. Then she turned around and walked into the kitchen again. I left. But I returned the next day. And the next. I never forced conversation. Just sat at a corner table, ordered tea, read. She ignored me. Until the 4th day, when she dropped a cup of coffee on my table without asking. I don't know why you're doing this. Because I never should have stopped. Mira bit her lip. You're going to ruin your perfect little future trying to fix what's already broken. Maybe I'm not trying to fix anything, maybe I just want to know if it still matters. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked it away. She walked away again. But that day, she didn't look quite as angry. A week later, I got the call. My father had collapsed at work. They said it was stress, maybe heart-related. He'd been overworking again, barely sleeping, barely eating. I rushed to the hospital. He was awake, but pale. Hooked up to machines, IV in his arm, eyes tired. I'm fine, he grunted. Don't look at me like I'm dying. I laughed despite the panic in my chest. You scared me. Well, you scare me sometimes too, like when you stopped talking about that girl. I blinked. You mean Mira? He nodded. You were more alive when she was around. You barely met her. I didn't need to. I saw the way you looked after her left. I know what it's like to lose someone and pretend you're okay. His words shook something in me. I thought I had to choose, I whispered. Between her and my future. He smiled faintly. Son, the future's not real if you leave behind the parts of yourself that made you. That night, I went back to the cafe. But Mira wasn't there. A different girl was behind the counter. She looked confused when I asked. She quit this morning, didn't leave a message. My stomach dropped. I called Anna. She hadn't heard anything either. Then I remembered something Mira once said, months ago, in passing. If I ever disappear again, I'd go somewhere no one looks. Like the train station's back garden. No one goes there. I didn't even hesitate. I ran. The train station garden was small, tucked between platforms, half forgotten, overgrown with weeds and rusted benches. And there she was, sitting alone, arms wrapped around her legs, eyes red. I approached slowly. You're running again. She looked up, startled. How did you find me? You told me, a long time ago. She didn't speak. I sat beside her. I thought I was saving you by letting go, I said. But all I did was break both of us. She wiped her cheek. I kept waiting for you to stop looking. I thought you'd give up. I did. For a while. But I hated myself for it. Silence. Then Mira whispered, Do you still hate me? I looked her dead in the eye. No. I hate myself for ever believing them over you. Another pause. Then she said, I'm tired, Jason. I know. So let me carry it for a while. She blinked. What if I disappear again? Then I'll find you again. And for the first time in months, Mira leaned into me, no walls, no distance, just her, trembling. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder. She didn't pull away. We sat there until the stars blinked on above the city. 2 weeks after I found Mira again in the train station garden, things finally felt normal. Not the kind of normal the world expected from us, but ours. Quiet mornings. Coffee she made too strong. Evenings with books open, music low, and her head resting on my shoulder while I explained algorithms she pretended to hate. We weren't together, not officially, not labeled, but she was back. And that was enough. Or so I thought. It was a Friday when the storm hit, figurative and literal. I had just wrapped a pitch meeting with one of the publishers from the Student Innovation Summit. They were offering me a deal to write a non-fiction book, Young Innovator's Journey. I didn't want to write it, but everyone insisted it would build credibility. Still, something felt off, like I was performing a version of Jason that no longer existed. I texted Mira. Book pitch done, I'm on my way. She didn't reply. No big deal, I thought. Maybe she was working, or sleeping in, or reading on the balcony like she always did. I bought her favorite cinnamon buns on the way home. When I opened the door, she wasn't there. Instead, Anna was. Sitting on my couch, legs crossed, holding a thick white envelope. I froze in the doorway. What are you doing here? She stood slowly. I needed to talk to you before things spiral. Where's Mira? She left. She asked me to give this to you. I blinked. You were with her? Anna nodded. Her face was unreadable, calm, too calm. I ran into her outside the cafe, she continued. We talked, or more like, she listened while I said what I should have said months ago. I narrowed my eyes. What are you trying to say? Anna sighed, then handed me the envelope. She didn't leave because of you. She left because of me. What? I lied to you, Jason, she said softly. Back then, when I showed you that photo of Mira with the college guy, I already knew it was Hodge, her cousin. I just didn't say it. My grip on the envelope tightened. You what? Anna looked down. I hated how she made you light up. I hated that all the things people mocked about her were the things you loved, and when she left that first time, I saw it as a reset, a second chance, but you never looked at me the way you looked at her, even when she wasn't around. She looked up again, eyes glassy but unapologetic. I didn't plan it. But when the photo landed in my hands, I knew what you'd think, and I let you believe it. My chest felt like it was cracking open. She thought you hated her, Anna added. That you believed every word they said, but she never stopped defending you. I stared at her. So you're telling me that entire breakup, the weeks we spent torn apart, was because of you? No, she whispered. It was because you didn't trust her enough to ask. I stood still, jaw locked. The silence between us heavier than any shouting could have been. Then I said, "Get out." She nodded. But before she left, she paused at the door. I didn't come here to win. I came to confess. What you do with it is up to you. When she was gone, I sat down slowly. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, written in Mira's handwriting. Neat, sharp, unfiltered. Jason, if you're reading this, I guess I finally found the courage to leave properly. No cryptic exits, no disappearing acts. Just a letter. I love you, I think I always have. Even when I pretended not to. Even when I teased you, mocked your shirts, laughed at how straight you sat in class. You made me believe I could be more than a rumor. But somewhere along the way, I became afraid that you were too good to be real, and when Anna showed me the look in your eyes, that hesitation, that flicker of doubt, I broke. Not because you doubted me, but because I realized I was the kind of person who needed your belief to feel like I mattered. I don't want to be someone who depends on someone else's love to feel whole. So I'm leaving to figure out who I am, without the noise, without the judgment, without the pain. But I will always carry you with me. You are the reason I still believe people can change, that I can change. Don't come looking for me this time. If we're meant to meet again, we will. Mira. I sat there, motionless. The cinnamon buns still warm in the bag beside me. My hands shook. I couldn't breathe. Because I knew, this time, she wasn't running out of fear. She was choosing to walk away with dignity. And I had no right to stop her. That night, I walked into the rain, no umbrella, no destination. Just me, Mira's letter in my pocket, and the sharp bite of the cold hitting my skin like punishment. I wandered until I reached the old classroom building at school. Empty now. Locked. But I sat on the steps anyway, remembering the first time I saw her. The silver hair, the smirk, the sarcasm. And the way she looked up at me that rainy day when I offered her half of my umbrella. That moment wasn't fate, it was a choice. One I made again and again, every time I let her in. But I also let her down. Because I did doubt her. I let whispers drown out everything I already knew about her. I let a blurry photo speak louder than all the nights we'd spent building something real. I wasn't innocent, and now I had to live with the truth that she still loved me. But not enough to stay. Maybe that was the price of not believing in someone when it mattered most. Maybe that was the climax, not a dramatic confrontation, not a public fight, but the slow, aching realization that love doesn't always leave with the door slammed. Sometimes it leaves with a whisper. I stayed out until dawn. When I finally returned to my apartment, the letter sat on my desk like a scar. But it wasn't the end, it was the reminder. That the girl the world called a mistake had become my biggest truth. 3 years later, they weren't whispering behind my back anymore. They were lining up in a queue that wrapped around the entire convention hall, holding copies of my book, waiting to get it signed by the boy they said would be nothing without her. Jason Reyes. The same Jason they used to mock in the lecture halls. The same Jason they called emotionless, obsessed, a one-hit wonder. The same Jason who used to chase after a girl with silver hair and a hurricane for a voice. The same Jason who lost her, but not himself. I signed the inside flap of a girl's copy, then looked up. "Your story saved me," she said, eyes wide, voice shaky. I gave her a small nod. "Thank you for reading it." I meant it. Every time someone said the story helped them feel seen, it carved a little light into the places I thought had gone dark forever. The story wasn't about success, it wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. I called it, The Girl with Thunder in Her Chest. It was about Mira. About the girl who left me better than she found me, even if she didn't stay. And yes, I named her in the book, with her permission, because she came back. Not the way you think. She didn't knock on my door with a suitcase or collapse in my arms at an airport. She emailed me. The night the manuscript hit #1 on the pre-order charts. Her name popped up in my inbox like a ghost I had never stopped waiting for. "Jason, I read the draft, and I cried. But not because you exposed me, because you honored me. I think I'm ready to come to the book launch. Not to take credit, just to say goodbye the right way this time." Mira. She came that night in a black hoodie, hood pulled up, hair shorter now, no makeup. I saw her in the back of the crowd. She didn't wave, she didn't smile. But our eyes locked, and that was enough. She slipped out before I got off stage. But later that night, I found an envelope tucked in my green room mirror. Inside it was a photo of us, not staged, not posed. Just us. Sitting at that train station garden, her leaning on my shoulder, a book in my lap. On the back, she had written, "You were never nothing, you just hadn't become you yet. Love always, M." I never saw her again. But I didn't need to, because she had already become part of my story, and I had become someone who didn't need saving to feel worthy. The revenge, if you want to call it that, came quietly. I didn't call out Anna, I didn't post some viral takedown thread, I didn't destroy her. I let the truth do that. The truth printed in bookstores and whispered on TikTok, passed from reader to reader. Did you know this book was real? Did you hear what that girl did to him? She sabotaged their love and he still didn't expose her name. That silence. That was louder than any drama she could stir. I heard through a mutual that Anna tried to sell her own story to a publisher soon after my book blew up. They passed. Said the market already had Jason's version. And no one wanted the voice of the girl who broke the boy the world had fallen in love with. As for Andrew, he faded into background noise. Turns out, he had always been more of a mirror than a man. He reflected whatever people wanted him to be. He never really had a core of his own, and people like that? They disappear when the lights get bright. I went on to write 3 more books, but none of them sold like the first, because that one carried blood, carried heartbreak, carried truth. They called me the boy who turned pain into pages. The critics said I had channeled grief into genius. But I wasn't trying to be genius. I was trying to make sense of how a boy like me survived a love like hers. How I stood up when the world laughed. How I kept going when the one I loved walked away twice. How I didn't become bitter. Just better. Sometimes people ask me during interviews if I still believe in love. My answer never changes. I say, yes, because I loved someone who didn't stay, and that love made me. They nod, thinking it's poetic. But it's not poetry. It's fact. Love doesn't always end with a ring or a reunion. Sometimes, it ends with growth. Sometimes, the most romantic thing 2 people can do for each other is leave before they ruin each other. And sometimes, the most brutal heartbreak is what unlocks the version of yourself that was always waiting beneath the surface. That's what Mira did for me. That's what loss did for me. At the end of every signing, I write the same inscription inside the last book. Be brave enough to lose people who never saw the real you, so you can meet the ones who will. And then I walk out. Back to a quiet home. A cat named Ember. A wall full of fan art from Ria, Durs who survived something too, and a framed copy of that photo. The girl with thunder in her chest, and the boy who finally learned how to hold lightning without burning.